Today's guest had his educational foundation set at the Knox Junior and High Schools. He and his siblings benefited from the guidance of a strong mother and grandmother. Perhaps it's a discipline of those early days from home and school which would eventually set him on a path of law enforcement. In 1997, he joined the Florida Highway Patrol. 10 years later, he began his sojourn at the police department at the Florida Atlantic University. On July 15, 2017, he was sworn in as Chief of Police at FAU. Meet Sean Brammer. He's charted a course as a first for a Jamaican. This is Profile. I am Faye Ellington. I have to get this right, so let me read it. You are the first Jamaican to make it to the position of police chief at Florida Atlantic University and as president of the Chiefs Association.
That is
Congratulations,
correct. Thank you so much.
Brammer.
Thank you so
How
much.
did you achieve this?
A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of preparation. From the foundation, growing up in Spaldings, that's where I was born. I was born in Spaldings, Clarendon, and from the discipline, like you said earlier, from my grandmother and mom.
But you also went to Spring Ground.
Yes, I did. So Spring Ground is in the latter years when I kind of moved from junior school to high school. We moved to Spring Ground. That's where we were living for the remainder until we migrated.
What does it mean to you to have accomplished what you have in law enforcement outside of Jamaica?
That's huge. Jamaica has, done so much for me in preparation. Like if I go back to my early years at Knox, going through Knox Junior School where, we had the Miss Gloria Swaby was our principal, Miss Bent was there as well. And from those early years, you never truly get to appreciate what the foundation that was laid and what was instilled in you until you get to reap the benefits of it, which is now what I'm doing as a chief of police.
Were you a good student?
I was a good student for the most part. If my mom hears this, she's going to kill me. But for the most part, I was. But in every child, there's some sense of mischief. And when I got to high school, junior school, I was really, really good. But when I got to high school, first 3 years, until I got to third form was good. And then I started hanging out with some of my friends, skipping classes. Yeah,
and your mom is knowing that now.
She's knowing that now. I hadn't told her, so forgive me for.
But when you look back at Knox High, if you had 2 or 3 adjectives to describe it, what was the experience like for you?
Wow. What could I say? They instill strength, character, and integrity. Those are the 3 things that if I could use those 3 adjectives: strength, character, integrity. And I can see it now in my later years that these things were coming out. Because you never, when Mrs. Jones, who was our principal in high school, she would tell us, you can't go across the street to the other shop and you buy we used to buy half a bread and cheese. And it was forbidden for us to do it. And you couldn't understand it, but it was not that she did not want you to go there, but it was a discipline for you to be able to, follow instructions.
Yes.
Those were the kinds of things. And now we see it.
Yes. In addition to the academics, what did you get involved with at Knox? Any sports?
Sports, yes. I did, football. But, in America, they call football the other thing that we run with the ball. But we did football. I did football, and I did track. I was real good at track. My last year in high school, first, it's a grade 1. I ran 10.97 on a grass track, but, I got hurt, and I just kind of gave it up.
And that's your story, and you're sticking to it.
And I'm sticking to it, 100%. 100%.
You left Knox, and then what?
I left Knox in 1990, the final year of the Costa Cup, and then we migrated to the United States, where, we were reunited with my dad, and from there I started working at Service Merchandise, and that's where kind of we started to, things started to change. As a matter of fact, when I first got there, I was in the process of joining the military. Mom was back home. She came back home to sell, some
You mean
property.
Back home in Jamaica?
Jamaica, yes. To sell some property, and we came, and at that time I was going to join the military. And called her and said, hey, I'm going to join the military. She says, no, you're not. And I said, why not? I want to join the U.S. Navy. And she says, no, you're not. And it so happened that September, we went to war in Kuwait. So,
Really? Trust your mother.
I did.
At all times.
I do.
What did you do after your working when you first went there and after your mother said, no, no military? What did you do?
What I started doing is I started doing a little DJing. So I was playing. Yes, I did.
Sean the DJ.
Yeah, I was a DJ. Yeah, I played a little bit. And from there, I was going to a Stone Love Bodyguard concert down in Miami. And it was one of those NBA seasons. I wasn't feeling it that weekend, you know, for some reason I wasn't feeling it. And my mom stepped out and said, my friend called me up and said, hey, let's go. We're going. I said, no, I'm not feeling it. She says, no, man, once you get off work, let's go. Got home, got in the shower, and as soon as I was coming out the shower, she stopped me and she said, hey, just don't go tonight. And it was that one look in her eyes. You know, typically I'd say, Mom, nah, I'm going, you know, don't worry about it, I'll be fine. But that look in her eye, there was something in her eye that night. And when I looked in it, I said, you know what, let me stay home. And that's what I did. I just said, I'm going to stay home and relax. And those guys got into trouble that night. And had I gone, you know, they got into altercation with some other guys that were there. And had I gone, I probably would not be here.
Saved by mom again.
Again, that's twice.
So you worked, but you also decided to go to university.
Yes.
What were you studying initially?
So I started working and going to the school at the same time. So I started doing civil engineering. And you know, my first 2 years, that's what I did in civil engineering, and then here came the call. Here comes the call for the sworn position at the Florida High Patrol. So I decided to change courses, did public administration, is which I ended up getting my degree in, and joined the Florida High Patrol in 1997.
What is it like working for the Florida Highway Patrol?
They're kind of like the best of the best, if you would. The great men of the road. So they were the guys that patrol all the highways, the interstates. It was great. That's kind of where I got my introduction to law enforcement, and really the foundation was set there. A couple of things that I had, the opportunity of doing was, one, we did the presidential inauguration for George Bush in his second term. I was sent to Washington, D.C., so I was a part of that. I was a part of also when Al Gore did his presidential bid. He came to Florida. I was part of the presidential motorcade, so I was exposed to a lot of things there.
And a lot of cold weather, too.
A lot of 17 degrees in Washington, D.C. A little boy from the country in Jamaica and in Miami.
And you had to stand in that for how long?
We stood there for about 4 hours for the entire
What was your duty that time?
So we were given a section, and we said...
section of the crowd?
A section of the crowd, and said, you focus on that. The president will be driving behind you. Don't look behind you. Just stay focused on the crowd, and that's what we did.
So what are you looking for when you stay focused on the crowd? Tell me. I need to know.
Any movements, anyone that looks suspicious, anyone that tried to do anything, come with weapons, guns or anything, we're trained to just look at it. Now, mind you, we're just one layer. Yes. So you have multiple layers, especially when you have the president of the United States. So. Mm-hmm.
Back to Florida. So you spent how many years in the Florida Highway Patrol?
10 years. I did 10 years with the Florida Highway Patrol.
Was there any event or incident that really scared you?
Yes, I've had quite a few. A couple of guys, we had guns in cars, and, guys tell you, stop them, and they tell you they don't have a gun in the car. And then just that second intuition, and you stop and you check and you find guns in cars. I remember one night there was this guy, stopped him for speeding, and asked him if he had a gun in the car. He said no. He reached under his seat. He said his wallet was under his seat because he had just finished playing soccer. Reached under his seat, and after he reached under his seat, reached to his right side, then he reached in the middle, and he reached his left, and I said, no, this is more, suspicious. He said, maybe it slid to the back of the car while I was driving, and then at that point in time, I grabbed him out the car and said, no. I'll wait for somebody else to come.
So you were alone?
I was by myself, because it's a little different in the United States patrolling than it is here. Because in the U.S., you're basically a one-man person until you get back up.
So you found guns on him?
Yeah, I found a gun in the car.
Oh, gosh, he was perhaps trying to find it to use it.
Absolutely, because to this day, I still have not found his wallet, but that's it. So.
We're going to take a break. Sean Brammer is my guest, and if you live in Florida, perhaps you've come across this gentleman, or maybe if you're at the Florida Atlantic University, I want to find out, how is policing a university different from policing just general public? Right after this, we'll find that out. Thank you for watching.